Hello and welcome back. This is Brent Driggs with Info on the Go. This is part 2 of the Atlantic Pacific Real Estate Lead Generation and Call Capture System training. In the first section, as you recall, we talked to you a little bit about some best practices for marketing. We told you how the call capture system works. We told you what you can expect when a prospect calls. We gave you some ideas. Remember the KISS method, the basic fundamental thing where we want you to put a sign writer on every one of your listings. We told you how to use your ID codes and your sign writers to really maximize your listing presentations and get more listings. And we also talked to you about how you create really a net out there to bring in targeted buyers in your specific marketplace. Very powerful. So in this section, what we're going to talk to you about is how do you kind of the nuts and bolts of how do you set up your properties. How do you access your system using the internet? How do you assign specific ID codes for specific properties, and how do you record your property descriptions? So we're going to tell you a little bit about that and give you more details on exactly how that works so that you'll know how to use this system very quickly. Now, one thing I want you to remember is this system is designed to be very simple. We designed it because we believe that people sell properties, technology does not. So we don't want you to have to spend a whole bunch of time fiddling around with technology in the office. We want you to be out talking to prospective buyers, specifically buyers that have expressed interest in buying the properties that you're selling. So that's really what we're going to be using that basis. So let's start with the internet. Let's go in and how do you set up a property, and we're going to talk through two different ways. We're going to first address the internet. How do you assign a property address or an advertising medium to each code using the internet? We're going to tell you how to set up where your prospect's contact information is going to be sent, and then we're going to tell you about how do you set up a password or a PIN code so you can access your system from your phone if you're out in the field or if you're in your office and don't have access to the internet. Then we're going to tell you about how to access it on a phone. So all of your property recordings will be done using the phone. So when you go out there, you'll want to just put in your PIN code, and I'll show you exactly how to do that here in just a minute or two. All right, so let's jump into let's talk to you a little bit about the internet. First off, what you're going to do is you need to jot down this URL. This is kind of a weird URL, but if you can't access it through the Atlantic Pacific site or at the infoonthego.net site, this is a URL that you'll always be able to use. http://iotg2.izat.net. Now, there's a default password set up for everybody, and the default email is going to be your Atlantic Pacific email address. Some of you have older Atlantic Pacific email addresses, and if that's the case, then that's the email address that you will probably want to use. But we're trying to move everybody to the first name dot last name at apreus.com. So that will be the default email, and then the password is lowercase APRE 2010. Now remember, on the password, the protocol is set. The passwords have to be at least 8 characters long, and it's case sensitive. Any combination of letters, numbers, and or symbols. So in this case, it's lowercase APRE 2010. As soon as you get into your system, I'd encourage you to go ahead and change your password to something that's unique to you, so you don't have the same password used by everybody at Atlantic Pacific Real Estate. All right, so open up your web browser, and this is what you're going to see. Once you put this in, you're going to see that the Atlantic Pacific Real Estate up here, okay, this is where it's set up. Now once you do that, then remember your APRE email address is what you're going to put in this section, and then you're going to also have the password, which is APRE lowercase 2010 right here as your password. Now remember, that's where you put it in here. Now as soon as you click that button, this is the screen you're going to see. You're going to be brought to what's called our user dashboard. Now some of you may not have codes assigned to you yet, in which case all of these fields will be empty. However, you'll still have access to your system. So let me tell you about what each one of these columns looks like and what they mean and how you use them. On the far left, you'll have the toll-free number, which is the same for all of the Atlantic Pacific real estate agents. It's right over here, okay? And then you have the list of codes that you are assigned. Now remember, if you don't have any codes assigned to you, you won't have anything in this white area right now. But as soon as your broker or your territory manager assigns those codes to you, then you will have your list of codes here. Now the remaining columns are address information that you put in depending on each individual property that you are selling, okay, and that you've assigned the code to. Now in the upper section here, you have 3 other buttons. The logout button, pretty self-explanatory when you're done, just log out of the system. Your codes, if you push the codes, that's going to bring you back to this user dashboard. And then if you press the profile button, that's going to give you your personal profile information. Let's click that and show you what that looks like. So first off, in this screen, what you're going to find is the first two fields are your first and your last name. I hope you can figure that one out. That one's pretty straightforward. The next field that you're going to see is this is your login email and the voicemail email address. Let me explain that. You can change this email to whatever you want. So if you don't want to use your APRE US email as your login, that's totally fine. You have 100% control over your information in your system. So just put in whatever email you want, but just remember that that email is the email that is going to be used for your login. Okay? And the second function of this email address here is that, you remember, as I told you in the last training session, that if the prospect chooses to leave a voicemail, the system is going to save that voicemail as a WAV file, and it's going to email that file to you. Guess what? This is the email address to which the system will email that voicemail, that recorded voicemail message. So you'll want to use an email that you check regularly or you have access to on a regular basis. So that's what the email is. Remember, you can change this to whatever you want. Now the next field is a very important field. This is the text messaging address that you want your prospect's contact information sent. Remember, as soon as that prospect dials a toll-free number and inputs your ID code, the system's going to capture their name, their phone number, and the property address, and it's going to text message it. This is the address to which that text message is going to be sent. So I need you to make sure you notice the format. This is very important. If you only put your cell phone number in here, you will not receive your leads on your cell phone. And the system won't let you do that because it's not going to. It recognizes you have to have the correct protocol format. So here's what you need to look at and make sure you understand. The cell phone number is this. You put in your cell phone without hyphens, at, and then every cell phone carrier has an email address that follows. This happens to be the cell phone, the SMS text messaging address for Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, Metro PCS, Virgin Mobile. All of those different carriers have a unique email address that you will need to put in here in order to receive text messages to your phone. We will send a listing of these SMS email addresses to you as part of your setup package, so in case you don't know or don't understand it, then you'll have that. Also, if you'll notice on the far right over here, we have a listing of them, and we're going to put a listing of the big five, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint, and probably Metro PCS over here, and their text messaging address, so you have that as an easy reference for you. So, once you put that in, you also have the ability to change your password. As you remember, the default password is APRE 2010, and that's the password you'll have in there. We strongly encourage you, everyone, to go in and put in your unique password. Just remember the protocol password. The protocol for those passwords is 8 characters, case sensitive, any combination of letters, numbers, and or symbols. Okay? So please change your passwords to something unique to you so no one else can go in and mess around with your stuff. Alright, then the next field here is a direct connect phone number. If you remember in the last training on how the system works, every prospect will have the opportunity at the end of the recorded home audio tour to push 1 and direct connect with the agent. This is the phone number that the system will try to dial to find you. So most agents are going to put their cell phone number in this field, okay? But just notice the format. You got to put it in with no dashes, okay? Just the numbers, no dashes. So remember, this is the direct connect phone number that your prospects will be directly connected to should they choose that option. All right, and then the next field is what's called a PIN code. This is your personal identification number. Now, what this is used for is when you're dialing in from the phone. So if you're not on the internet and you want to go in from your phone, you're going to put in dial the toll-free number. You're going to put in your ID code, and then you're going to hit star, and it's going to ask you for a PIN code. And all that says is the system wants to know it's you. Most agents will use the last 4 digits of their cell phone here. the default number that we put in here is 1234. You can leave it as 1234 if you choose, but whatever number you put in there, just remember it, because that's what you're going to need to access it when you dial in from your telephone, whether it's your landline in your office or your cell phone in the field. This is the number you're going to need to access that to record your property descriptions. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Once you've made any changes, you want to make sure that you hit the change button, right? This will save your work and it will send you back out there. Now remember, if you get lost, you get confused, you don't know how, we put this kind of these cheater fields over to the right here to help you to remember what goes in each one of these fields and the right protocols and formats to make sure that you set it up correctly. Okay? So that will give you there. Once you're done, you click change, it'll send you back out to this field. Now this is how you're going to show, I'm going to show you now how you change the property address and the contact information for each of the codes. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on this little wrench over here to the far right. So just pick the code you want. Say you want to put in 9997 here. So just click this wrench code and you're going to be brought to this screen. You notice you have 9995 right here. That's the code you want to change. So you have the opportunity right here to put in all this information, the road, the city, the state, the zip code. You don't need to put anything in here if you don't want. I strongly recommend you at least put in a property address, because if you're managing 15, 20, even 5 or 6 properties, some of you may be managing 100 plus properties. You really want to know which code, when you get that text message, you want to know exactly the property address so that you'll be better prepared in responding to that prospect's questions and being able to give them the appropriate information. So that's what you want to do. Now you can also, instead of putting a property address, if you choose to use your code on an advertising medium, such as running it in Penny Saver or Thrifty Nickel or a apartment magazine, instead of putting a property address here, just write in Thrifty Nickel ad for 2-bedroom, 2-bath home, or whatever you want to do, because it'll show up the same way when that on your cell phone when that text message comes in. Whatever you put here, you have complete control. Okay? So then that's the property address to which the code is going to be assigned. Okay? All right. Now, in the next field down here, this is where you will be able to put in additional SMS email addresses to which you'd like to have the voicemail messages sent. Now, I use the word additional very clearly. If you leave this field blank on the code page, then the system will still send any messages to the default email address you set up in your profile. If you want additional people on your team or an administrative assistant to also receive that email, then list their information here. So once again, the default will be sent to your profile information that you set up previously up here in the profile section. If you don't put anything here, if you put additional ones here, it will be sent not only to you, but to any additional email addresses you put here. Okay? So that is, remember, that's where the WAV files will be sent if your prospect chooses to leave a voicemail message. Now, the next field is the same scenario. This is your SMS text messaging addresses, the additional ones. If you don't put anything in this field, then the system is going to go ahead and send your text messages to the default one you set up in your profile. However, many of you will want team members and or administrative assistant, or if you're on vacation or in a meeting, you'll want your text messages to be sent to an additional source. So this will allow you to do that. Some agents will use this and they'll partner with a mortgage company, and the mortgage company will also want to have those text messages. So that will give you the opportunity, and you just need to coordinate who's going to follow up with that prospect immediately. So once again, just remember that this is where the prospect's contact information will be sent, and remember that's going to go there usually within seconds. Now, by the way, this is I told you that there's different SMS emails addresses for each one of them. This happens to be T-Mobile's, tmomail.net. This happens to be AT&T's, txt.att.net. Now remember, over here on the right, you'll have a little log of these the 5 big carriers, so that you'll be able to understand and know how to format that correctly. You want to make sure you get that formatted appropriately there. Okay? All right, so